Discover the touching moment. Sir, that watch belonged to my deceased mother. Exposed billionaire's deceit in a heart-wrenching showdown. Tyler's heart raced as he stood backstage, a few moments away from the showcase that would determine his future. He could feel the oppressive weight of judgment in the air, the expectations crushing down on him. One man, Mr. Sterling, loomed larger than the others, a wealthy businessman who had stolen the dreams of those who fought to rise above. Tyler's fingers trembled against the cool surface of his mother's pocket watch, a piece of history that had survived death, just like her legacy. Could he find the courage to confront the nightmare? The thought of his mother and her unwavering spirit stirred in him a mixture of pride and profound sadness. Every hour spent watching her craft beautiful designs, drawing intricate blueprints with love and patience, was now overshadowed by the bitterness of betrayal. She had sacrificed everything to build him a future. Now it felt as though it was slipping away from him. The cruel irony that a man like Mr. Sterling could ruin lives by lying about creative labor sparked a fire of anger deep inside Tyler that flickered like an old flame waiting to be rekindled. As he wrestled with anxiety, conflicting images danced in his mind. The garden they tended together, the laughter shared over a warm meal, and the sacrifices made to ensure he would never know hunger. Yet here he was, a mechanic among giants, caught in this debilitating dance of despair and determination. How could he claim what was rightfully his? Would anyone even believe him? The echo of voices filled the void around him, urging him to remain silent, to let the rich man's deceit fester while he quietly toiled. Every sip of doubt felt like poison. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Standing in the wings of the stage, the audience's murmurs buzzed around him like a swarm of bees. Tyler's breath quickened as the seconds ticked away. Memories flooded his thoughts. Rusty's lessons about resilience, about fighting against the odds even when the world seemed stacked against you. Could Tyler rise to the occasion? Every muscle in him tightened, battling against the fear of failure. If he didn't speak up now, if he let this moment slip by, would his mother's legacy die alongside her? He glanced down at the pocket watch again, feeling a new sense of reverence wash over him. It held his mother's painstakingly crafted blueprints, the very designs that had fueled his ambitions. Were they only meant to gather dust within the compartment of an old timepiece, buried under the weight of grief? Deep-seated desperation clashed violently with the flicker of hope ignited by her words. With each heartbeat, the thought of Mr. Sterling's smirk haunted him, an embodiment of injustice that made his stomach churn. Could revealing the truth finally allow him to honor his mother, or would it lead to further despair, another mountain of disappointment? As he stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinded him temporarily, a surreal sensation where reality faded and the weight of thousands of eyes bore down, pushing him toward the edge of revelation. He felt it all crashing in. The dreams of a young boy, the sacrifices of a mother, and the chilling threats of a corrupt man who thought he could take it all. Tyler's voice wavered as he prepared to speak, his heart thundering wildly between anger and vulnerability, each thud echoing the secret promise to fight back. But would he have the strength to declare, "Sir, that watch belonged to my deceased mother," and shatter the silence that had suffocated his family for too long? The room held its breath, and so did Tyler, ready to confront the ghosts of his past and fight for all that he had lost. The spotlight felt both enchanting and suffocating as Tyler faced the audience, the pulse of his heart a frantic drum in his ears. The murmurs dimmed, urgency thrumming in the air, as if everyone waited for a revelation, An explosion of truth. His breath caught, tangled in the web of expectations he had woven around himself. The watch was heavier than he remembered, as if the intricate gears within mirrored his own winding thoughts, a blend of fear, hope, and unyielding determination. "Sir," he managed to speak, each syllable emerging from his throat as a low rumble. "That watch, it belonged to my deceased mother." The words trembled on the precipice of his conviction, hovering there like the unresolved tension in the room. For an infinite moment, silence reigned, a vacuum where every heartbeat echoed loudly, calling forth the weight of a truth long concealed. Mr. Sterling's eyes, shadowed by confidence, narrowed as they flicked towards Tyler. "You think this trinket proves your inheritance?" he scoffed, voice dripping with mockery, as if Tyler were nothing more than an inconsequential nuisance. The audience shifted, their curiosity piqued and laced with skepticism. Tyler felt the shift of their judgmental gazes, but this time it fueled his resolve. "I know what she created," Tyler insisted, words spilling from him, gaining momentum as passion surged within. "I've seen her designs, the dedication she poured into every sketch. This watch isn't just a piece of jewelry, it holds her legacy, her vision." He glanced around the stage, at the faces, some intrigued, others doubtful. A flicker of recognition sparked within him, igniting a desire to not only claim his mother's legacy, but to prove his identity as well. As the audience absorbed his words, lingering emotions pulled at him. Vulnerability and strength intertwined, braided tightly like the threads of the fabric he had once watched his mother stitch together. The echo of her laughter danced in his mind, urging him on. He steeled himself, recalling how she had nurtured his talents. Would she be proud? Or would she be afraid that he had let fear dictate his choices? Mr. Sterling, sensing the turning tides, leaned forward, a predatory glint in his eyes. "You think a mere story can wash the stains of your ineptitude clean? This industry thrives on talent and connections, not tales of heartache." Each word dripped with disdain, a calculated attempt to exploit every crack in Tyler's facade, to tear down the reality he sought to build. Yet with each syllable Sterling hurled, Tyler felt his foundation hardening. "It's not just a story," he rebutted, voice rising with conviction. "It's evidence of passion, of disruption. People like you must be held accountable." The finality in his tone punctuated his words with an unexpected confidence, channeling every ounce of his mother's spirit. Taking a deep breath, Tyler gripped the pocket watch tightly, reminding himself of why he stood there, the custodian of her dreams. He needed to reveal the sketches, her creations, methodically twisted up in the core of his resolve. But would bringing forward that evidence risk stirring their dormant nightmares once more? Would revealing the truth illuminate the path to justice, or shatter his spirit entirely? With an electric current running through him, he looked Mr. Sterling directly in the eye, seeing a man who had thrived on taking everything from others. The moment had come for Tyler to unveil not just the watch, but the plans his mother had hidden within. Could this audacity tip the scales in his favor, or would it ignite the wrath of a powerful adversary? As he sensed the weight of the unveiling, determination surged. "Tomorrow," Tyler declared, his voice steadying like steel forged in fire. "I will show the world what my mother created, and it will challenge everything you have built on lies." The tension simmered as he felt the crowd pulse with curiosity and disbelief. The stage had been set for a confrontation that went beyond mere business. It was about confronting a deeper moral dilemma: who truly deserved to claim the legacy of creation and artistry. With a daring heart, Tyler took a step forward, prepared to battle not just for his mother's honor, but also for his own right to exist in a world that had nearly crushed him. And yet, as the moment hung in the air like a fragile breath, he couldn't shake the question from his mind. How would Mr. Sterling retaliate when cornered? Tyler awoke the next morning, a cocktail of trepidation and eagerness swirling within him. Sleep had been elusive, each hour a restless cycle punctuated by thoughts of the coming day. Today was not merely a fight for a legacy. It was Tyler's chance to define himself. As he stared at the ceiling, contemplating the enormity of his mission, a glimmer of doubt crept in. What if he faltered? What if the weight of his mother's dreams crushed him beneath it? He rose and pulled on a shirt. The fabric brushing against his skin felt foreign yet familiar. He'd worn it countless times, a symbol of the stability his mother had provided. Like the watch, it was a reminder of her fierce spirit and unwavering belief in his potential. Stepping into the kitchen, he poured himself a cup of coffee, the bitter scent clouding his mind with thoughts of what lay ahead. The sketches. They lay in a neat folder, the curated collection of his mother's vision that he had painstakingly unearthed over the past weeks. Each piece was testimony to her ingenuity, her relentless pursuit of creativity amid challenging circumstances. But with every sip, the remnants of his history blended with fear. If the world rejected them, they wouldn't just dismiss his mother's legacy. They'd dismiss him. As he prepared to head out, he caught his reflection in the mirror. The boy who had once cowered in the shadows now stood tall, a boy shaped by loss but ignited by purpose. Today, he would not just walk into a boardroom. He would stride into battle, armed with the truth and the memory of a woman who had gifted him with talent and tenacity. Minutes later, he found himself bracing against the cold wind outside a sleek high-rise, the atmosphere rich with potential. As Tyler entered the building, anxiety clenched at his torso like a vice, but he steadied his resolve. No longer would he let other people's doubts drown out his voice. He'd come too far, fought too hard, and his mother's spirit was a talisman that shielded him. Upon reaching the conference room, Tyler positioned himself at the front, the sketches resting on the table beside him. As he awaited the arrival of the board members, anxiety surged within him. This was not just a presentation, it was a reckoning. Mr. Sterling entered, flanked by executives with expressions that oscillated between curiosity and condescension. It was a tableau of power dynamics, shifting as he prepared to confront the man who had belittled him. "Let's get to it, shall we?" Mr. Sterling called out, his confident demeanor radiating condescension. With the room's focus shifting towards him, Tyler drew a steadying breath. "What I'm about to show you isn't just paper and ink. It's a vision that my mother created against all odds." His voice, calm yet firm, rippled through the air as he lifted the first sketch from the portfolio. He unfolded it delicately, the bright colors bursting forth like flowers breaking the surface of winter's frost. As images and ideas flowed, Tyler felt the environment shift. Skepticism began to dim, replaced by intrigue. The room was no longer just an arena of competition. It transformed into a space of shared creativity. Each illustration breathed life into his narrative, painting his mother's determination in vivid strokes, weaving in stories lost amidst time's thrum. But as Tyler progressed, focusing his energy on telling his mother's story, a nagging thought darted across his mind. What retaliation would Mr. Sterling conjure now that his complacency was in jeopardy? "Interesting," Mr. Sterling interjected, his voice sly and calculated. "But do you really think a few sketches can challenge decades of my work? You may have the spirit, but, shall we say, the proof is still a tad lacking." The smirk that accompanied his words dripped with malice, signaling a looming battle for credibility. Tyler's heart raced, but the fire within flared stronger as he realized that to stand up in front of this audience meant embracing the fullness of his mother's legacy and his own ambitions. Would he bend under pressure or forge ahead with certainty? With unyielding determination, he locked eyes with Mr. Sterling, taking one last deep breath before responding. "I'm not here solely to compete with you, Sterling. I'm here to reclaim what is mine." The moment stretched taut, uncertainty crackling within the air. How would Sterling respond when he felt cornered? Would this be the day Tyler finally shattered the chains of doubt, or would it merely be the beginning of a far more dangerous showdown? Only time would tell. The silence stretched on, thick and charged, as Tyler's declaration hung in the air. Mr. Sterling's expression momentarily slipped, revealing a flicker of annoyance. This was not a mere disagreement. It was more personal now, a direct challenge. "Reclaim?" Sterling echoed, his brow furrowing. "You think reclaiming is as simple as making claims in front of this board?" He took a step forward, leaning on the table, eyes piercing. "You need more than determination to dismantle a legacy." Tyler felt a rush of adrenaline. The wheels in his mind turned swiftly. The shadows of doubt clutched at the edges of his confidence, but he pushed them aside. "Every great legacy begins with vision, Sterling. My mother's vision could have changed this company, but you've chosen to suppress it. If you think merely holding on to decades of tradition will protect you, you will find yourself outpaced by innovation." He could feel the intensity of the board members' gazes sharpening. They were drawn into the burgeoning conflict. Their interest peaked. The casual dismissal of his mother's sketches began to shift into curiosity. Would they witness a confrontation that could redefine everything? "Change requires more than just sketches," Sterling retorted, his voice dangerously low. "It requires results." He leaned back, crossing his arms, as if deliberating some unseen strategy. "But perhaps you only have nostalgia to offer?" Tyler took a breath, the weight of the moment anchoring him. He thought of the sketches, more than just drawings. They were infused with his mother's spirit, her resilience, and the lessons she had instilled in him. "Nostalgia is a bond, Sterling," he emphasized slowly, "and the power of that bond can drive results. It can conquer mere reliability that fades with time." The room shifted slightly, one of the executives leaning forward, intrigued. Tyler seized the opening. "Let's put it to the test. Allow me to present a concept not just born from nostalgia, but from the future my mother envisioned. A future full of potential." Boldness surged within him as he picked up the next sketch, an architectural masterpiece she had drawn decades ago. "This design has the ability to revolutionize how we see space. It was ahead of its time, and the world is now ready for it. It embodies creativity and innovation. Living proof that though the past is significant, we must never stop looking forward." Tyler's resolve solidified like concrete beneath his feet. His vulnerability transformed into a weapon, ready to challenge Sterling's authority. The room was taut with tension, his adrenaline coursing as he prepared to unveil not just sketches, but a full-fledged concept that could shake the roots of the company. As he spoke passionately about the features and the environmental benefits, he noticed how Sterling's smugness began to waver. The executives whispered among themselves, contemplating the implications of what they were hearing. Tyler pressed on, convinced he was finally breaking through the barriers that had kept him from this moment. "Imagine a space that embodies both sustainability and artistic flair. That is what my mother dreamed of creating, a world where design inspired life." But then, a thought struck him. Was this proposal merely a response to challenge, or the beginning of something bigger? Could his mother's legacy be the catalyst for a complete transformation, not just for this proposal and boardroom, but for Tyler himself? The atmosphere in the room shifted again, but not merely from intrigue. It was charged with potential, a realization that the outcome of this confrontation could redefine Tyler's path entirely. "What makes you think this will work?" Sterling's question cut through the budding excitement, infused with skepticism, yet tinged with a hint of self-doubt. Tyler straightened, determination surging again. "Because, unlike you, I have something real to fight for. I have a connection to a vision greater than just profit margins. I'm prepared to cultivate the legacy my mother envisioned, and I'll bring every ounce of her creativity back to life." With that, Tyler felt the weight of the past shift onto his shoulders, fueled by the faith and energy of the woman whose dreams had shaped him. He was not just digging in his heels for a moment of glory. He was building a bridge toward a future only his mother could have foresaw. "Let's face the truth," he continued, his voice unwavering. "You may have experience, but I have heart." Mr. Sterling's smirk faltered once more, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. In this standoff, Tyler was ready to escalate his fight. Would his words resonate with the board members, or would Sterling reassert his dominance? The air buzzed with unresolved tension as Tyler prepared himself for what lay ahead. He sensed he was on the precipice of awakening something greater than himself, but would he be able to harness it, or would he fall prey to the very doubts he fought against? In that electric moment, he realized that the battle wasn't just about proving himself. It was about rewriting his entire narrative. Would he be taken seriously, or be dismissed as just another dreamer in a room full of investors? The stakes had risen astronomically, and with them all the possibilities of his life and legacy hung in the balance. The board members shifted, the tension almost palpable, and absorbed the proximity of the conflict brewing between Tyler and Sterling. As the silence resettled, Tyler decided he wouldn't back down. The moment called for audacity, and he prepared to unveil the emotional core tied to his mother's designs, a legacy eclipsed by corporate greed. "Before I show what I believe could be our defining project, I want to share something more personal with everyone here." His voice took on a softer timbre, inviting the board to lower their defenses. "This isn't just about architecture or profit. It's about my mother's dreams, the woman whose ambition inspired not just me, but the very foundation on which this company was built." He paused, searching their eyes, gauging their reactions. Sterling's bravado wavered, his disbelief momentarily cast aside. Tyler drew in a deep breath and continued. "This watch," he said, pulling it from his pocket, a simple silver timepiece with a delicate engraving on the back, belonged to her. It symbolizes her vision, timelessness, creativity, and an unwavering belief in the power of design to change lives. Every tick is a reminder of the legacy I'm fighting to uphold. As he placed the watch calmly on the table, the board members shifted, some leaning forward, others exchanging hesitant glances. Tyler seized the moment, his own heart racing as he sensed the atmosphere had transformed. "This isn't about nostalgia, Mr. Sterling," he pressed. "It's about honoring a vision that can redefine our future. This is the nexus of my proposal." He pointed to the architectural sketch, leaning closer as he spoke. "This design isn't merely a collection of lines and shapes. It embodies emotion, a story of resilience and forward thinking. It challenges traditional norms while holding true to the values my mother stood for: sustainability, beauty, and community. Imagine constructing a physical space that becomes a living testament to her ideals." In that moment, light flickered in the eyes of some executives. They began to nod, once skeptical expressions softening. The watch sat resolute among them, a beacon of purpose. But then, a voice cut through the budding momentum. A board member, a seasoned veteran known for his conservative views, chimed in. "But what if we invest in this, and it fails? The company can't afford another misstep." He folded his arms, challenging the very core of Tyler's passion. Tyler felt a spike of urgency. This was not just a critique, it was a reflection of his own fears. "I understand the risks," he replied, forcing calm into his voice. "But think of the alternative. If we allow fear to dictate our decisions, we will remain stagnant, outpaced by more innovative competitors. This proposal is an opportunity, not just for me but for all of us, to be pioneers in a new era." The murmurs among the board members heightened, some exchanging hopeful glances, others still clinging to skepticism. He recognized hesitation, the familiar shadows creeping back, questioning if he was purely an emotional figure rather than a competent leader. "Let me be transparent," he stated, driven by urgency. "I don't only want to reclaim my mother's legacy, I want to create a new path for this company, a path where creativity meets pragmatism. If I'm wrong, yes, I'll accept the consequences. But if I'm right..." He looked each board member in the eye. "We can redefine our story and create something extraordinary." He felt stagnant doubts bubbling within, a small voice whispering that he might be overstepping boundaries. Still, vulnerability now became his greatest asset. If every artist before him had embraced failure and risen again, he could challenge failure too. As confidence rippled through him, he made a choice to pivot from merely defending his vision to inviting collaboration. "I propose we do a pilot project, a smaller prototype that embodies my mother's design. Let's test its viability before diving into a full commitment. If we fail, we learn. If we succeed, we illuminate the future of this company." The board was quiet, absorbing his proposition. A new energy emerged as the executives deliberated. Tyler's heart thudded, the stakes higher than ever. He had taken a leap, but whether it would land softly or plunge into chaos remained uncertain. Then, with almost palpable momentum, one board member spoke up, voicing support, a spark igniting in the rear of the room. "Let's see this prototype. It's worth investigating further," they said, a shift that rippled through the room. The meeting was far from over, but Tyler felt the tide turn. He was no longer just a participant. He was a driving force. Yet, in the depths of his mind, a nagging thought surfaced. Had he led them onto a tumultuous path he wasn't fully prepared for? Would the board truly embrace this radical idea? As curiosity clashed with the specter of self-doubt, Tyler realized the real battle had only just begun, with a legacy on the line that was bigger than himself. What awaited as the reality of his ambitions started to unfold? Would the prototype validate his mother's dreams, or unravel the very fabric of his intentions? The days following the board meeting felt like a whirlwind, shifting from moment to moment, of hope, anxiety, and unrelenting pressure. Tyler had ignited a spark among the board members, a glimmer of interest in his prototype. Yet, the adrenaline from that initial victory was quickly overshadowed by lingering uncertainty. He found himself pacing through his apartment, the walls closing in with the weight of his intentions. In the quiet moments, thoughts swirled. Would this prototype resonate with the public? Would it reflect his mother's spirit? Or would it be another corporate miscalculation? Each unanswered question gnawed at his resolve. He had thrust his vulnerabilities into the spotlight, and now he was asked to navigate the treacherous waters of corporate expectations, his very legacy at stake. As he started mapping out the prototype's design, he aimed for a balance between emotion and functionality. Each stroke of his pencil felt like a tribute, yet the pressure of perfection loomed large. Tyler reminded himself that perfection was an illusion. The essence of his mother's work lay in its connections, its ability to evoke feelings and unite people through space and light. This realization shifted his approach. The project couldn't merely be built on aesthetics. It must invite interaction, community, a living experience. The weeks piled on. Tyler engaged with the team that had always stayed in the background: engineers, sustainability experts, financial analysts. He needed their expertise, but more importantly, he had to transform them from passive commentators to invested allies. Each conversation began to unearth the rich tapestry of ideas he hadn't previously considered, merging technical prowess with imaginative vision. If he listened closely enough, they expressed their fears and hopes. They were not just employees, but individuals driven by a unified desire to innovate and break free from past failures. However, Sterling's presence cast a long shadow. With each meeting, he remained skeptical, often throwing barbed comments that challenged Tyler's integrity. "What do you know about the risks, Tyler? You think nostalgia will save us?" the older man said. Such confrontations only intensified Tyler's determination. It was no longer just about proving an idea. It was now personal. He couldn't let Sterling distort the narrative of his mother's legacy. In a moment of boldness, Tyler decided to confront this challenge head-on. One evening, after a long brainstorming session, he gathered the team in the conference room and challenged Sterling to come to a discussion, one-on-one. An air of tension filled the chamber as Tyler stood before a man whose dismissive attitudes threatened to snuff out the light he'd ignited. "Mr. Sterling, you keep casting doubt over the value of this project. I want to understand your perspective, but I also need you to see what I see, an opportunity to rebuild our reputation. What do you fear?" Tyler posed the question, each word growing firmer as he felt confidence swelling within. Surprised by the direct engagement, Sterling's eyes narrowed. "Fear is not my driver, but pragmatism is. I've seen countless startups crumble with projects like yours. This isn't a sentimental playground, Tyler. It's business, and each dollar wasted can cost us dearly." "Exactly," Tyler replied, the stakes amplifying in their discussion. "It's about making investments with impact, not just dollar signs. This can redefine spaces, invigorate communities, and restore our standing as leaders in architecture." For the first time, Sterling hesitated, and in that silence, Tyler seized the moment. He spoke from the heart, articulating how this project wasn't just a job for him. It was a legacy intertwined with everything they had built. In that confrontation, he discovered a newfound tenacity, one that blurred the lines between personal ambition and professional responsibility. The conversation shifted from adversarial to exploratory, each layer of mistrust peeling away bit by bit. Afterward, Tyler stood staring at the city skyline from the conference room window, heart pounding. He had confronted not just Sterling, but his own fears, reframing doubts into purpose. The prototype was becoming a reality, fueled by more than financial projections, fueled by community spirit, memories, and his mother's unyielding dreams. Yet, even as the project's inception approached, another wave of anxiety crested. He recalled their conversation and wondered, had he swayed Sterling? Was their early alliance simply a facade waiting to crack under scrutiny? The prototype was still without public validation, and he felt the pressure mounting to prove himself. What challenges lay ahead as the prototype was unveiled? Would it transcend beyond the boardroom and resonate with the world, or would its debut threaten to unravel everything he had worked so hard to reclaim? Days turned into weeks, and as the prototype's unveiling approached, a palpable tension consumed Tyler. He immersed himself in finalizing designs, sketches littering his workspace like fallen leaves. Every stroke was imbued with purpose, every measurement a testament to his commitment. Yet, as his excitement grew, so did the specter of doubt he couldn't shake off. Feeling restless, he took to late-night runs along the city streets. The rhythm of his footsteps became a meditation, his mind racing as the crisp air filled his lungs, drowning out the budding insecurities. It was on one of these runs that he began to visualize the project not merely as a professional milestone, but as a cathartic tribute to his mother, a way to brand his identity not just as her son, but as a creator in his own right. This insight lit a spark within him. He wasn't just salvaging a company's reputation, but forging his own path. Back at work, he found clarity in his conversations with the team. Energetic brainstorming sessions transformed into strategic discussions, full of insight and collaboration. They began to converge on a distinct concept, an interactive space that told stories through light and sound, drawing on Tyler's deep-seated knowledge of his mother's artistry. The room buzzed with shared creativity, and for the first time, it felt like they were not simply launching a product, they were crafting a movement. Tyler's newfound confidence allowed him to push boundaries. He encouraged the team to take calculated risks in their ideas, emphasizing values over bottom-line metrics. Each meeting morphed into a workshop of innovation, dismantling bureaucratic ceilings that once stifled potential. They were no longer simply associates. They were a tribe united by a shared vision, driven by passion and respect for the legacy they were charged to uphold. But with this momentum, Sterling's scrutiny intensified. The man who had once been a mere obstacle now seemed to be vying for dominance in ways that were both subtle yet suffocating. Tyler could sense Sterling's plan leaping into action. The veteran was consolidating control by seeking to undermine his emotional attachment to the project, framing it as a potential disaster waiting to happen. One frigid morning, after a particularly heated round of discussions, Tyler confronted Sterling again. "You do realize this isn't merely about the balance sheet, right? We're attempting something revolutionary," he said, holding back his impatience. Sterling chuckled dryly. "Revolutionary? Or just sentimental? You sound like a poet, not a businessman." In that moment, Tyler grasped an undeniable truth. He had grown into a builder of both dreams and practicalities. With venom coiling beneath, he leaned into his rising frustration. "Sometimes, Sterling, you need to be a poet to evoke real change. What we're crafting isn't just a product, it's an emotional connection." The conversation was not just a standoff, but an awakening. Tyler recognized Sterling's strategic maneuvers not as personal attacks, but as challenges to confront his vision and values. He needed to evolve, to marry his creativity with commercial acumen. Refocusing his determination, he initiated private meetings with financial analysts and engineers, devising a robust plan that legitimized the emotional aspects of the prototype with clear profitability pathways. There were risks, yes, but they could be framed as part of a calculated gamble, the very essence of entrepreneurship. As the final days leading up to the prototype's reveal rolled in, Tyler oscillated between excitement and anxiety. He could almost hear the chime of the clock for the moment when years of struggle would culminate in something tangible. If he failed, everything he had built, his convictions, his father's legacy, would come crashing down. In an intense flurry just hours before the presentation, a spark ignited in him, a sharp realization. They were not just competing against the market. They were re-entering a narrative shaped by history and human connections. But just as he thought he had harnessed his momentum, a sudden email notification danced across his screen. An ominous preview from the board that hinted at unexpected adjustments to the presentation strategy. What twist awaited him in this precarious moment? The moment of unveiling was drawing close, but the stakes had just been raised to unimaginable heights. Would the realization of his vision slip away before it even saw the light of day? The air was thick with an electric tension as Tyler stared at the email on his screen. The words blurred briefly, and he wiped sweat from his brow. Adjustments to the presentation strategy? It felt like a curse dangling above him, ready to drop and crush his aspirations. As his colleagues buzzed around him, oblivious to the impending storm, Tyler focused on the pulsing urgency in his chest. He needed to act. Drawing a deep breath, he decided to gather the team. Meeting after meeting had built a camaraderie among them, yet there was still that lingering doubt, a flickering fear that some members might fold under the pressure. Could they face this new challenge head-on? Could they pivot without losing the essence of what they had created? "Everyone, can we huddle for a moment?" Tyler's voice cut through the chatter, commanding attention. The group gathered, each face a blend of eagerness and concern. He took a step forward, heart racing. "I just received an email from the board. They want us to alter our presentation strategy." Murmurs rippled through the group, uncertainty settled in the air. Tyler could feel his own resolve shaking slightly, but he pushed through it. "I know we've put our hearts into this project. We've written stories into every corner of this prototype. But the board thinks we should take a more traditional route." He paced, his eyes scanning the group. "They're asking us to downplay the emotional aspects, stick to the facts." The room fell silent. It was as if everyone held their breaths, waiting for a cue from Tyler to calm the rising tide of anxiety. He paced more deliberately, emboldened by the weight of his own conviction. "But that's not who we are. We're not a corporation looking for a quick profit. We're a movement, a testament to creativity, a connection to the past, to my mother." The mention of his mother brought a shift in the atmosphere. Some exchanged glances, and Tyler could see the flicker of recognition in their eyes. A realization that they were more than just numbers on a balance sheet. This moment was no longer solely about business. It was about family and legacy. "Let's redefine what the board wants," Tyler urged, fueled by passion. "We can present this project not just with profit margins, but as an evolution in human connection, blending artistry with analytics. If they question our approach, we counter them with the emotional intelligence we've embedded in this prototype." Encouraged by his words, the room filled with energy once again. Ideas sprang forth as team members eagerly began to brainstorm adjustments that married their emotional narrative with compelling data. The atmosphere transformed into one of resilience, camaraderie strengthening with every shared suggestion. They began layering concrete metrics onto the heartfelt story, forging an unbreakable link between sentiment and practicality. Yet, just as momentum surged, another ominous thought crept in, a specter of doubt that just wouldn't let go. Would the board truly appreciate their effort? Would Sterling see this as a threat to his control, furthering his manipulations to undermine Tyler? The prospect of an all-out war for his project left a cold knot churning in his stomach, urging him to prepare for the worst. As the meeting wrapped up, Tyler felt renewed, yet anxious, a tight band of hope and fear squeezing his chest. They had transformed uncertainty into a strategy, but it felt like assembling a fragile house of cards towering on a precipice. As the clock crept closer to the presentation, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that everything would hinge on the board's next move. Just as he was about to leave the room, another email notification chimed. A message from Sterling had arrived. Tyler's breath caught in his throat as he opened it, knowing this could change everything he had just built. What could Sterling be planning now? Tyler opened the email cautiously, his heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of his thoughts. The subject line was terse. Presentation strategy adjustments. He clicked it open, feeling as though he were stepping into a minefield. Sterling's words cut through the digital haze, sharp and unyielding. "Tyler, your recent insistence on an emotional narrative is misguided. Remember, we're here to maximize shareholder value, not to indulge sentimental journeys. The board expects numbers and projections, not heartstring-drawing anecdotes. I suggest you change your approach before the presentation. Think pragmatic." The gravity of the message settled in Tyler's stomach like a stone. He had anticipated resistance, sure, but this felt like a direct attack. Sterling wasn't merely a critic. He was a force to be reckoned with. Was this a ploy to strip away the heart of the project and leave something charred and corporate behind? Sitting back in his chair, Tyler's mind raced. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the entire team and the vision they had collectively forged. A rage began to stir within him, a determination to defend not just his work, but their legacy. But how could he challenge Sterling without risking everything he had built? How could he respond not just with passion, but with strategy? He felt the flicker of inspiration igniting his will to confront. He typed a response, his fingers flying across the keys. "Sterling, I understand your point about focusing on traditional metrics. However, the emotional aspect of our project is what sets it apart. We must embrace this evolution in storytelling to create a genuine connection with our audience. I propose we marry the emotional aspects with strong data points to present a holistic picture that showcases both innovation and practicality. Let's talk before the presentation." He hit send and leaned back, letting out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Perhaps it was a risky move, but he sensed the adrenaline coursing through his veins would drive the final sprint toward the presentation. As he prepared to leave the office, he noted the time. A mere 2 days remained before they faced the board. Each hour felt like a regimen of intense mental gymnastics, propelling him to strategize how to blend the emotional with the analytical effectively. He needed to grasp every angle, anticipate every counter-argument. Their next meeting would not just be a platform for ideas, it would serve as a battleground. Tyler made a mental list of team members he would need to consult. He would gather their strengths, challenge their creativity, and probe their insights. Each contribution could add a layer of depth that would fortify their narrative without letting go of the profound essence that had sparked this project. Ideas that had emerged in the last meeting resurfaced, gaining momentum in his mind. Walking to his desk, he felt energized rather than overwhelmed. The time for doubt was over. It was time for action. But as he scanned the room, a flicker of hesitation returned. Wondering how far Sterling would go to undermine him weighed heavily on his mind. Was this just a professional rivalry or something more insidious? Suddenly, his phone chimed again. A new message popped up from an unknown number. "Meet me tomorrow. I have information that could change everything." Tyler's heart raced. Who could this be? A potential ally or another layer to the intrigue? As uncertainty gnawed at the edges of his resolve, he realized one thing. The game was escalating, and he was about to face challenges that could either solidify or shatter his ambitions. Knowing he had no choice but to confront the mysteries ahead, he grasped for his courage as he prepared for what lay in store. What could this mysterious messenger reveal? As the knot of tension tightened around him, he knew he would have to delve deeper than ever before. Would this encounter lead to the breakthrough he so desperately craved, or only deepen the web of betrayal? The next morning, Tyler awoke to a torrent of uncertainty. The sun broke through the blinds, illuminating his room, yet all he felt was the heaviness of impending confrontation. The message from the mysterious number loomed over him, burning in his mind like a beacon. Who could have information that could change everything? He had no answers, only questions spiraling in his thoughts as he prepared for the day. He arrived at the designated cafe, heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Each passing moment felt like a test of his resolve. Would he meet an ally or another adversary? As he sipped his coffee, a figure approached from the shadows. A young woman, striking yet familiar, with eyes gleaming like shards of glass. "Tyler," she greeted, her voice smooth yet laced with urgency. "I'm Leah, a former designer at Sterling's firm. I heard about your project. I think it's incredible, but heed my warning. Sterling doesn't take any threats to his legacy lightly." Tyler's mind raced. "You know him? What do you know?" Leah's expression turned serious. "I worked by his side for years. He fosters loyalty through intimidation. If you challenge him publicly, he'll retaliate in ways you might not expect. He will twist everything into a liability if necessary, even your project. But I want to help you. I believe in what you are trying to achieve." The weight of her words settled over Tyler, igniting his resolve. Here was someone who recognized the worth of his fight, someone who had lived the realities of Sterling's deception. "What do you suggest?" "We have to build a strong narrative," Leah replied, leaning in closer. "Show them that the design is not just revolutionary, but will also ensure profits. You need the data to back up the emotional impact. And Sterling, you need to make him appear invisible. His shadow can loom large, but if you bring light to your truth, he won't stand a chance." In that moment, clarity struck Tyler like a lightning bolt. He understood now. It wasn't merely about the design or the prototype, but about how he could wield narrative as his greatest weapon. While the board was intrigued by artistic potential, it would be the financial viability that ultimately swayed them. Tyler left the cafe, their conversation echoing in his mind, and a fresh perspective blooming in his chest. That night, Tyler gathered his team once again, this time with eagerness rather than uncertainty. "We've been focusing on the emotional connections our designs evoke, but we need to fortify that with hard data now. Leah has suggested we include projections on community engagement, potential targeting demographics, and sustainability metrics," he communicated, his voice steady and commanding. The team began brainstorming, merging artistic vision with market strategy. They explored how their project could enhance community spaces, create sustainable jobs, and address environmental concerns, all while weaving in Tyler's mother's legacy as a core message. The plan began to take shape, and for each point raised, Tyler felt the barriers dissolving. 2 days later, as Tyler mounted the stage, nerves flared anew, yet they were accompanied by a newfound confidence. With every step, he recalled the conversations with his mother, the lessons she imparted about integrity, creativity, and resilience. As the presentation commenced, Tyler stood firm, balancing the emotional gravitas of his mother's legacy with the commercial viability of the project. He introduced the prototype with the pocket watch resting on the podium, a symbol of continuity and courage. He spoke passionately, blazing through the graphs and data, mingling heart with numbers, intertwining the story of loss with renewed purpose. The audience was drawn in, caught in the balance between innovation and sentiment, feeling the heartbeat of what they were crafting together. Towards the end of the presentation, Tyler cast his gaze directly toward Sterling, who watched with a tight jaw. "This is not merely a project for me," Tyler pronounced, as he gestured to the community projections, illustrating the potential impacts. "This is an opportunity for us to redefine the legacy we leave behind. Let's not just follow tradition. Let's create a future worth inheriting." The silence that followed was charged. Tyler felt the tension crack in the air, eyes darting toward each board member's expressions, contemplating the mixture of inspiration and worry. But then, unexpectedly, he noticed small nods begin to ripple through the audience, affirmations of collaborative thought taking shape. Mr. Sterling's facade of composure slipped momentarily. "Interesting points, Tyler," he said, though his voice dripped with incredulity. "Yet results must confirm those emotional appeals. You might find that merely providing a heart does not guarantee it will thrive in the competitive market." Tyler took a deep breath. This encounter was not a sign of defeat, but a potential turning point. "But it's more than just logic, Sterling. It also needs a soul. If we can tap into resonance, our work will not only become marketable, but iconic. We're not just constructing designs, we're sculpting experiences." As Tyler concluded his pitch, he felt something shift in the dynamics of the room. Questions arose, sparked by curiosity rather than skepticism. Projects began to blend together, igniting conversations around collaborative possibilities rather than limitations. Days turned into weeks filled with collaborative efforts, meetings, and deliberate reshaping of their initial prototype, all while Tyler learned to navigate the corporate landscape with an unprecedented confidence and flair. The unveiling date of the prototype arrived, tension buzzing like static. When the time finally came, Tyler stood in the center, surrounded by family, friends, and industry leaders, no longer a boy concealing his mother's legacy beneath layers of uncertainty. He was a man fortified by purpose, embodying tenacity and the spirit of inspiration that grew from loss. With applause reverberating through the theater, the prototype took center stage, a marvel of artistic ingenuity that shattered reservations. Each design choice paid homage to his mother's vision while echoing the needs of a modern world. As he glanced at the watch in his pocket, Tyler felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Through turmoil, he had emerged not just victorious, but transformed. Finally, as the closing comments rang in the air, a standing ovation erupted. Tyler recognized the beaming smiles of his colleagues, the embrace of his team, and the pride that radiated from within. This was not merely a triumph over Mr. Sterling, but a reclamation of his identity, a legacy renewed and redefined in the image of genuine, heartfelt creations. Leaving the auditorium, he took a moment to breathe, allowing the weight of accomplishment to settle within him. He had succeeded in proving not only his worth, but had brought his mother's legacy back to life. With restored confidence, he knew this was just the beginning. The momentum of this journey would catapult him forward, reshaping the industry movement into something profound. The echoes of the past intermingled with the possibilities of the future, and Tyler felt an exhilarating surge of potential rise within him. As he stepped out into the world, he understood one vital truth. He had indeed conquered doubt, reclaimed his voice, and emerged stronger than ever. Now more than ever, be the force of your own narrative. Don't wait any longer. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to act and show your love for overcoming stories.